Welcome back. This is Sid with Humbucker Soup. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the 5 things that make a guitar feel fantastic. So, starting with the scale length. The scale length refers to the distance from the nut to the center of the 12th fret. Some people measure it starting from the nut all the way to the bridge, but the more accurate way to measure your scale length is to go from the nut to the center of the actual metal fret, the 12th fret. So in Fender style guitars, the scale length is typically 25.5 inches, and for Gibson style guitars, the scale length is typically 24.75 inch. So for me personally, I started playing Gibson style guitars that had a shorter scale length. And so when I moved on to playing Fender style guitars, my initial reaction was, this feels a bit harder and it feels strange to be playing this, because it was a combination of different things. But later on, I came to realize that the scale length had a very crucial part to play in that. The second aspect is the radius. The radius refers to the curvature of the fretboard. So if you hold your guitar that way, you'll see that the top of the fretboard, at least this is most apparent in the frets, have a slight curve to them. This is the radius. So vintage style guitars have a smaller radius, meaning they have a rounder fretboard. So vintage style guitars typically have, especially in Fenders, have a radius of 7.25 inches to 10 inches. So that's kind of the range over there. And more modern style guitars have flatter fretboards, so 15, 16 inch radius. Gibson typically does 12-inch radiuses on Les Pauls and SGs and stuff like that. And Fender, it's all over the place, depending on which year and, who's the make and where it was made and stuff like that. So something for you to pay attention to. Rounder fretboards definitely facilitate a certain kind of playing. Flatter fretboards are more common in styles that require a lot of fast guitar playing, so metal, certain styles of rock. Also, something to keep in mind is that more modern guitars have compound radiuses. What that means is that it starts off as maybe a 10 and then moves on to a 15 or a 16. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. And that really impacts the way a guitar feels in your hands. The next one is fret size. So number 3, fret size. Vintage style guitars, personally, I'm not a fan of vintage style frets, which are tiny. So when you actually go in to do a vibrato and you dig into that note, you feel the flesh of your finger actually scraping against the fretboard. I'm not a big fan of this, and so I prefer really tall jumbo frets. And I also use stainless steel frets because to me they feel a lot smoother and they also wear down less. So that's something for you to keep in mind. The next one is string gauge. So string gauge is the thickness of the string, probably the most apparent aspect when you pick up a guitar to play, because lighter strings, which is let's say an 8 gauge or a 9 gauge or even a 10 gauge, feel a lot easier to play. So a lot of phrases that are especially fast, or if you're sweep picking or if you're tapping, feel a lot easier to accomplish on lighter gauge strings. When you start going up in gauge size, it starts to become more challenging because there's more resistance being offered to your pick and also to your fretting hand. So bends and stuff like that start to become more of a challenge. So something for you to keep in mind, experiment with the gauge and also try out custom gauges as well. Something that a lot of great guitar players have done over the years. Another one, or the final one, is the pickup height. So the pickup height refers to how far the pickups are away from the strings. As you all know, pickups are essentially magnets. They exert a magnetic pull over the strings. So the closer they are to the strings, the more of an influence, the stronger that magnetic pull on the strings, which then influences and affects the way that string vibrates. So that's going to affect the way your guitar feels and how that string sort of feeds back into your hand. So those are the 5 things that I feel are the not so obvious aspects that really influence the way a guitar feels. I hope you guys learned something from this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.